Carnage is going to murder Miles Morales for slighting him during the King in Black event. When we last left off, Carnage had acquired an Iron Man suit and altered it with his symbiote. He then went to New York to get revenge on Miles. His new abilities allowed him to take over the body of anyone around him, and using this, he tricked Miles multiple times, almost killing him multiple times. Scorpion was working with Agent Gao, and he joined the battle. Together they pushed Carnage back, but Carnage isn't done. Now Miles is going to team up with Taskmaster, Scorpion, and various members of the Anti-Cape Squad. It's a big crossover. So today we're going to be covering Carnage 13, Red Goblin 5, and Carnage 14. This is Comicstorian. I make audio dramas of your favorite comic books so that you know what to go out and collect, and today we continue Carnage Reigns. Not long ago, Kenneth Neely had a will of his own. Anyone who knew Ken would know that he was a monster, a murderer. But even he didn't know true evil until he swam into the red wake of a creature known as Carnage. For weeks now, he's been goaded and coaxed across the universe while the beast gored its way to godhood. Eventually, even he realized that its ascension could mean the end of everything, even blessed slaughter. So he sought out one force in the universe capable of stopping Carnage, Cletus Cassidy, a serial killer who also happens to be Carnage's former host. But there was something different about Cletus. He was using his new other, a hybrid of a symbiote dragon in the old Iron Man suit. So Ken provoked him in hope that a taste for mass murder might bring back his old self. However, for Cletus, he wasn't in any shape to do what Ken wanted, or rather, suggested, since no one controls Cletus Cassidy. Recently, even with his iron symbiote, Cletus had a run-in with Miles Morales, and the zap that Miles gave him, well, it sort of fried the Iron Man tech inside, like literally fried a hole into Cletus's chest. The smell was indescribable. But for a second, Cletus was connected. He was inside the wires. He once thought being connected to the Hive would allow him to remake the world in his image, but he was wrong. That's why Ken is going to help him with a few upgrades. A short while later, in the Stark Unlimited building in Greenwich Village, scientists are getting to work salvaging old Iron Man suits when there's a sudden explosion at the front entrance. As the security guard on duty is thrown through the door, Cletus follows behind, telling everyone, "My name is Cletus Cassidy, and this is my rather lackluster hype man, Ken. Now which one of you is going to take me to Tony Stark?" One of the scientists says that Mr. Stark is no longer running the company. Mr. Heng is now the new owner. Cletus tells him, "Well, I have a bit of a problem. Seems the old ticker inside of me isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing." The scientist takes a closer look at the opening in Cletus's chest. "Is that repulsor tech?" "I couldn't tell you. All I know is that it's busted and it stings like hell. Can you fix it?" The scientist tells him of course not. But before he could even finish explaining why, Cletus releases a blast melting the scientist's face. Cletus then turns to everyone else. "Look, no need to get jumpy, but I did need to make an example out of one of you. Now, are the rest of you gonna fix me up or what?" The rest tell him that they can't. Tony never shared the specs to any of his suits. They wouldn't even know where to begin on repairing whatever he has become. Cletus looks across at the scientist. "Well, if you don't know, you know what they say. If you can't repair, replace." He points to one of the Iron Sentinels and tells them to put that in him. A little while later, all of the nanotech is being implemented into Cletus's body, and he tells Ken to keep an eye to make sure that they don't do anything to him when he goes under. Ken informs him that he has no weapons in one hand, so Cletus tells him it's time to repay his loyalty. Before Ken could even realize what's going on, Cletus begins to infect Ken with parts of his symbiote, reaching out and taking pieces of old Iron Man suits and grafting them onto Ken. Ken looks at his hand as well as his newly formed one, and then realizes that he's not in control of his own body. "Control? You never had any. Now just relax and let old Cletus take the wheel, because the only person I trust to look after my own interests is myself." But at that moment, Ken is struck as a green blur whizzes by. The blur suddenly stops before Cletus, and Hightail says, "Whoa! A big monster and a little monster! Whose ass am I gonna kick first?" With Hightail's attention on Cletus, Ken touches the ground, beginning to spread the symbiote out to grab Hightail, holding her in place long enough for him to shoot her in the back. Ken begins to laugh, but before he could do anything worse, Taskmaster attacks him and Ken screams out in pain. He then goes back to laughing as he regrows another hand. "I'm just playing!" And he punches Taskmaster into the ground. But before he could finish off Taskmaster, his hand is pulled back by webbing as Miles swings in with the rest of the Cape Killers. He kicks him, asking, "Why are there always more of you?" And Cletus reaches out, telling the scientist to hurry. But he also grabs Miles. "Isn't it past your bedtime?" Electra shocks Ken. "I'm gonna cook you out of that thing!" And Ken begins to grab more Iron Man pieces, trapping her inside of them, causing her attack to deflect back on herself. Scorpion arrives yelling, "I don't care how many mini-me's you got lined up. I'll go through them all, Cletus." Ken then asks how many holes does he have to put in him before you get the message? Scorpion spins back with his tail, launching Ken out of the building, and then Cletus gets back up, pulling some of the equipment off while Miles swings in to try and deliver another Venom blast, like before, the one that shut down Cletus. But Cletus releases a blast of energy, knocking Miles away. "Did you really think that would work again, kid? Right now I can feel myself inside of the building, inside of the city, buzzing in the wires. The back door to everything. So many new meat puppets to play with." Miles looks at the scientist, asking, "What did you do?" And the scientist explained that they isolated the old escape backbone so that he couldn't infect any other carriers. But he can still reach so many people. Miles asks if they just put Cletus online. And the scientist says not just online. Cletus is in the building's learning neural network. From here, he can spread out through Tony Stark's escape system, every host, every wire. You saw what he did with a barely functional suit. He was turning people into lethal puppets. Now he's gonna do the same thing to the whole city. And then, carnage will reign. The first thing that Cletus did when connecting to the city was decide that he needs more recruits. So he reaches out to Liz Allen, and her son Stan picks it up. He begins to talk to Stan, asking if he wants to hear a secret. And when Stan puts the phone to his ear, Cletus whispers something. Suddenly, Stan's eyes turn red and he grabs a knife from the block. Meanwhile, Liz is enjoying her bath with her headphones on, oblivious to what is happening, as Stan quietly sneaks in, raising up the knife. But before he could bring it down, Normie catches him, and Cletus talks through the phone. "Hey, if it isn't Normie Osborn, the Goblin child himself, or are you Red Goblin now?" Normie asks what did Cletus do, and Cletus explains. "Why don't you have a look at the phone and see? I'll tell you a little secret. The most epic secret in the whole wide world." But as Normie grabs the phone, Rascal, the symbiote that is attached to the young child, begins to panic, shouting, "No, no, 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 Batman, Batman!" Cletus says, "Oh, is that a little sliver of me? I can smell it in that adorable symbiote cocktail you got going on. How very interesting." Suddenly there's an explosion outside and Normie asks what was it. Cletus tells him that he wished that he had just listened to his secret. "It's how I've been making so many friends, Normie." Outside, Normie can see the Cape Killers fighting off the infected people of the city, as well as the infected just fighting amongst themselves. But while Scorpion finds himself moments away from being ripped to shreds, Agent Gao saves him at the last second, telling him that they need to move. Scorpion gets back up, asking how bad are things. She tells him that Cassidy's consciousness seems to be contained in the old Stark escape network, so he's largely confined to New York. At that moment, Gao's phone rings, and when she answers it, a voice asks, what is she still doing in the building? It turns out that it's the new owner of the building, Mr. Heng, and he begins to argue, asking why she's even there, but she just kind of hangs up on him, telling him that she needs to deal with Cletus. But as she's about to hang up, Heng explains that that's actually why he called. He's delivering heavy ordnance to the area that Cassidy has taken over, and he strongly advises that she and her team move elsewhere when that happens. Back on the streets, the infected are getting ready to strike down someone when Normie interjects, stopping it, telling everyone that they need to go home. One of the infected yells that they are home. "Welcome to the Cletus Cassidy show, where participation is mandatory!" But at that moment, something slams into the car next to Normie, and Miles gets up. "All right, tonight officially sucks, and I've decided not to participate." Normie asks if Miles is okay, and Miles climbs out, asking who Normie is. Seeing that he's in his Red Goblin outfit, Normie says that he's still working on it. Miles laughs, "Ha, are we all? So are we fighting or And then a voice calls out asking if he's seeing double, or do spider people grow on trees? Ken stands up, blasting the both of them. Quickly trying to figure out what to do, Miles holds up his hands, looking at Normie. Can you do the thing? Normie asks him, the web stuff? Yeah, pretty sure. Cool, let's hang the laundry out to dry. The two spin their webs, with Ken rocketing himself forward just in time to be clotheslined by the thread. For a moment, Ken wakes up telling them that they need to get him out of here because Cassidy is in his head. So Normie walks over. Really? Dude, we gotta get him out of here. But before Miles could tell him not to, Cletus begins to take back over Ken. Don't mind Ken. He's just a little salty over having his body jacked. Miles then jumps onto the back of Ken, ripping off the Iron Man mask. And just as the symbiote is giving way, a spike shoots out, stabbing Miles in the arm. Cletus laughs as the symbiote retakes Ken. That's much better. The old faceplate tasted like tinfoil. He activates the thrusters, bringing him and Miles into the sky. Miles begins to web his legs to the ground to slow the process, but Cletus spins his head around, opening his mouth. You silly goose! I was gonna finish you off quick, but not anymore! At that moment, Cletus is stopped as the symbiote is suddenly stripped away. He looks down to see Normie as Red Goblin holding on to him, absorbing the Carnage symbiote. Back at Stark Unlimited, Cletus begins to shout, No! The little offshoot and the cosplay Spider-Man just threw me out of my old damn meat puppet. Nobody takes my stuff! Nobody! Normie and Miles watch as the infected become more aggressive against the heroes and anti-heroes are trying to protect them. But that is until there's a crack-a-cocoon that shakes the ground, knocking everyone away. Normie shields his eyes from the bright light, asking, Are we being rescued? And Miles tells him, I really hope that's the Avengers. But as they look up, they see two Iron Sentinels. Yeah, no, that's not the Avengers, Spider-Man. With everything going on, Cletus takes a moment to re-examine his own situation. He's busy trying to make new friends, the stabby kind. But the Osborn kid who's wearing warmed-up leftovers can absorb symbiote matter. He's out there with the Morales kid, who hurt him. And now they're both stuck talking to themselves in an empty lab because they don't know how to be alone. But they do this every time they feel small, right? They multiply! But that also makes them predictable, makes them vulnerable. Perhaps it is why Carnage always loses. The Extrembiote says that that's interesting. Are you proposing a change in tactics, Cletus Cassidy? Cletus tells him, Oh, not at all. Perhaps we're thinking too small. We're trying to reach millions. Why not reach trillions? All of these old Iron Man armors, we could use them to build a bigger mirror. The Extrembiote looks at him. I understand. I might just have the thing. Back outside, Normie and Miles are holding off what they can of the infected while the Sentinels attempt to corral people, telling them that they need to go home. Normie yells in frustrations that he barely made a dent in those things, and they keep coming. They need to find the main guy for him to absorb. Taskmaster looks at the child. You realize you're talking about Cletus Cassidy, right? Forgive me for saying. You're not looking too hot right now, kid. Up in the tower, the Iron Sentinels begin to fire their payloads into Cletus Cassidy, but Cletus grabs a hold of one of them, beginning to crush it. You know, I really hate fighting robots. Just straight up hate it. Because you can't die. As Cletus is occupied, Miles swings up, taking Normie as close as they can to Cassidy. As for the Iron Sentinels, Hang sits back laughing, stating that he did it. He managed to shut down and take over Cassidy's nasty little signal. He's been kicked out of the wires, isolated, and what comes next is elimination. Cletus crushes the sentient Sentinel too late, screaming, Whoever you are, I will tear out your tendons and make your carcass dance on Broadway! Across from him in the shadows, Miles tells Scorpion that they need a distraction. And Scorpion tells him, you need a punching bag, don't you? Fine. Scorpion throws himself into the middle of it all, calling out to Cassidy, giving Normie the time that he needs to try and absorb the Extrembiote Carnage. But as he does, he begins to see something, feels something. He feels the ocean of cruelty. There's no end to it, and Normie can't do this. It's too much for him to take. Normie collapses, and Miles tells Scorpion that the kid is down and not getting up. We gotta bail, Scorpion! As they try, Cletus looks back up. You don't get to run from this. You ruined a perfectly good evening. Meanwhile, back over in New Jersey, a man sighs. If I knew today was today, I would have shaved for this. Cletus Cassidy, back to spooking the natives, using my freaking suit to do it. No, this time, I'm not letting it slide. This time, you're gonna answer for your crimes, Cletus. Tony begins to assemble his suit. Then he tells Boss to go ahead and lock up. I'm on my way. Boss tells him, confirmed. query? And Tony tells him, I need a stick. A really big stick. And that concludes these chapters of Carnage Reigns. Now make sure you subscribe and like, as tomorrow we will be concluding this storyline. The finale just came out this week, so I wanted to get it all together for a big lambastic finale. Tony Stark is now involved. We got Miles, we got Red Goblin, we got Scorpion, we got the Cape Killers, we got them all. Everyone fighting Carnage, who's taken over the city. So what do you think is gonna happen? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you next time right here.